now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
You've been lied to by textbooks, and that dude who jumped out of a perfectly good balloon, what's his name? Felix Baumgartner. He would have been about 2 millimeters above the surface of this globe. That's his edge of space jump. Now, you know, I don't. It's fine. He wants to. I don't have a problem if he does it, but the honesty of it would greatly diminish what I think people thought he was actually doing. And not only that, they made sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide-angle lens, which curves horizontal lines. Right. So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he said, "Wow, he's in space. Look at that." No, he's not. At that height, you don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball. You just don't. That stuff is flat. 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 That stuff is flat.
I worry about the world that we live in. I'm worried by all the confusion. I wonder about the lies I've been reading. I wonder where this madness is leading. Is this a road going nowhere? Or is someone leading us somewhere? I can't believe we're here for no reason. There must be something we can believe in. Blinded by science.
There's so many people out there that believe the world is flat because you could literally see the curvature of the Earth from a plane. It's the scariest one. That there's so many people out there that believe the world is flat because you could literally see the curvature of the Earth from a plane.
Whatever it is, it cut off all our roads.
Not just the roads, the whole town.
Our best guess puts the dome at 20,000 feet, sir.
Did he just call it a dome?
You think we might be stuck in here a while?
I think that even if what's wrong suddenly becomes right, the Army's just gonna quarantine this place.
Duke, what the hell is going on?
I promise as soon as I have answers, so will all of you.
Should we tell him the truth?
We're on this together.
Why Chester's Mill? Why us?
Maybe we're being punished.
We're all on the same side.
To see who your friends are and who isn't.
I can't hear you.
Looks like we're stuck in a giant fishbowl. I used to have fish, but then one of them got sick, and the other one ate him.
You've been lied to by textbooks. Make sure to photograph him standing there with a really wide-angle lens, which curves horizontal lines. So in the photo, you see this curvature of Earth's surface, and he said, wow, he's in space. Look at that. No, he's not. At that height.
An all-new episode of Under the Dome, featuring a special appearance by Bruce Willis.
Phil! You... I broke the dome.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Let rain pour, 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 let rain pour. Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. Let rain pour, 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 let rain fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
What are you gonna do, kill us? The dome will crack.
Lander, the time has come. Look up and fly. Break that glass ceiling and set us all free.
So Miranda symbolically there, breaking the glass ceiling.
I mean, I could have said the world was flat.
You know what I think? I think you accidentally told the truth.
Is he God that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. So God, basically the firmament was the tent. It's the canopy. And he sits upon it. And as we've stated many times before, the word circle here is not sphere. In the Hebrew, it is the word kug, which means circle, not sphere. There is a word in Hebrew called dur, which is ball. Did not use the word for ball here, it used the word for circle. So what he's saying is that this dome is a circle that goes around. And I don't have time to get into it, but I can even show you where the Hebrew letters bear this out, that the dome is the high fence that creates. God made us a place to live. It's not spinning, orbiting, hurling through space. We're not the speck of the dust like, what was his name? The famous guy, why can't I remember? We're not the speck of dust in the galaxy. Sagan? Yeah. But this confirms Ezekiel talking about the throne set on the firmament. It says he sits on the circle of the earth. The Bible is consistently saying the same thing. This is not a metaphor, this is real. All right? Now let's keep going. Y'all gonna love this. This is, what's the website? Everybody look at top there. All right, NASA.gov. April 1961, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Calculation of wind compensation for launching unguided rockets. Pretty serious stuff, rocket science. Rocket science, calculating wind, right? Pretty important thing to know when you're shooting rockets. Faith and I discovered that not too long ago. We shot up one of our rockets and the wind took it far, far away. We never found it. All right, so this is an important little tidbit thing to study, you know, if you're going to send them up high, right? So I did the little wind effect. Did you like that? No, let me back it up for a second. Look at Blake, see? The wind effect. There we go. Have a little fun. There it is again, just so you see it up close. Calculation of wind compensation for launching unguided rockets. So we're talking about rockets by Robert L. James Jr. and Ronald J. Harris, Langley Research Center, Langley, Virginia, Langley Field. I would say pretty important stuff, right? All right. But who reads this stuff? Who stays up all night and all day reading this stuff? I do. All right, technical note. Here we go. Summary, method for calculating wind compensation for unguided missiles. It is derived from which has a greater degree of flexibility than previously proposed methods, blah, 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 and they get into it. So they're telling you, summary, here's what we're up to, trying to figure out how to guide rockets. Yes, sir. Linear aerodynamics, yes. Coefficients with respect to flow, incidence angles are used, launch angles for wind compensation. I mean, it's pretty serious stuff, right? I think you'd probably need to get it right. I know if I was their general or their boss, I'd say you guys better get it right. This stuff's expensive, so let's get it right.
Better work.
Right, it better work. Let's look at this. It says trajectory simulation incorporating the above requirements is presented in reference 8. In addition to the above requirements, this simulation assumes a vehicle with 6 degrees of freedom and aerodynamic symmetry and roll, and the missile position, again, space, we'll deal with that. They don't even, it's not what they're talking about. What we think, what they've told us, and what they know space is, two different things. So when they say it, they don't mean what they've lied about. The missile position in space is computed relative to a flat, non-rotating Earth.
Zika will be the first of many viruses over the years because the world is flat. These kind of mosquitoes are here in the United States, and we now know that these mosquitoes can get Zika virus very easily from biting somebody, and the world is flat, right?
realize that we've been lied to about everything when it comes to space.
People wonder why I don't trust NASA. That's why I don't trust NASA. Everybody's trying to show you stuff from space and you keep rejecting it. This is why I reject it. These guys are liars.
NASA, we're coming for you. For 60 years, you've been faking space. There are no spheres in the heavens. The experts have devised them in the imagination so it was easier to understand their movements. So what's that mean? Well, it means stars are not distant. Guilty of a cover-up the likes of which has never been seen in human history. Everything, and I mean everything that we were taught about space, about the planets, about the orbits is a hoax. It's a lie. That means our entire idea of the cosmos isn't just wrong, it's very wrong. Astronomically wrong. So, any scientists, any physicists out there going to do anything? Or is the scientific community just going to sit there and do nothing? You guys are really just making it harder for the truth to come out by protecting these frauds and the liars that deceived all of us.
My question is, through your career and your writing and your acting, you've inspired so many people to enter the sciences. How do you balance science with science fiction?
They're both the same. The mystery of science fiction is what I'm talking about. Science and science fiction are essentially the same.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Their ongoing mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually. We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
People and security is going to be a very big factor with respect to space and space exploration. At some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, how did we do it without space?
Space, the final frontier.
Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. I just can't conceive it. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning around. I know that I will never be politically correct, and I don't give a damn about my lack of etiquette. As far as I'm concerned, the world could still be flat.
Think for yourself. You have to be willing to cut against the grain and get the distance from your peer group.
When they said Earth was flat, what
flowers growing tall? Can you read thoughts? Can you read palms? Can you predict the future? Can you see storms coming?
I know you deceived me, now here's a surprise. I could see for miles and miles. I could see for miles and miles and miles and miles and.
This is the moon as seen from Northern California. I used my Nikon Coolpix P900 to record this. It's actually pretty amazing how close I can zoom in on it. Just how clearly I can see it, even in the daylight. I can actually zoom in closer to craters to look at those if I wanted. Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at zooming in on this stuff in the sky. This is Jupiter. It's a planet, as I'm sure you've heard. It's one of the gas giants. I didn't really know very much about Jupiter or much about anything in outer space until I started recording the sky using my camera. But you can see this here. Jupiter looks really cool. It seems to have waves running through it, there's a flickering within it, and it looks a lot like a glowing light. This is Venus. Venus is the second planet from the Sun. It's the second brightest natural object in the night sky after the Moon. If you didn't know, Venus is a terrestrial planet, and it's sometimes called Earth's sister planet, or twin, because of their similar size, similar mass, similar proximity to the Sun. Here's Venus slowed down a bit. Venus seems to have waves running through it too. Venus isn't the only object in the sky that does this though. So let's look at a few stars. This is Vega. It's the 5th brightest star in the night sky, and it's the 2nd brightest star in the northern hemisphere, which is where I'm at in the United States. But just look at it. There are some really unique colors in there. It also looks like it's pulsing and waving and moving around inside of it. It also has these ring-looking things going around inside of it from its center to the edges. And just like Venus, Vega has some kind of dot right in the middle of it. But let's look at another star. So this is Arcturus. Arcturus looks like a disco ball with so many amazing colors flashing inside of it. Arcturus is the 4th brightest star in the sky and the brightest star in the northern celestial hemisphere. It's straight up amazing and beautiful. This is Polaris. It's also called the North Pole Star, which is also in the northern hemisphere. Notice how this star doesn't move across the frame of my camera. Remember how all of the previous objects I showed you so far, they moved pretty quickly across my lens when I recorded them. Well, as you may know, Polaris doesn't move more than a degree, and all of the circumpolar stars in the northern hemisphere rotate around Polaris. I'm curious if you've ever seen recordings of planets or stars in the night sky like what I just showed you. Because there's no doubt the moon looks the same as what you've probably seen, but when it comes to planets and stars, I bet that you've primarily seen images like these. I think it's odd how different these online images look versus what I actually recorded and what I actually observed with my camera. I just wish that some of the normal observations came up at the top of some of the online searches I do. I found a lot of things odd and kind of strange and surprising recently, and that didn't start happening until this year, 2017, because I actually started looking up. I started looking at the daytime sky, started looking at the clouds and how different they can be from one day to the next. I looked at planes flying across the blue sky. I looked at the sun behind the clouds. I looked at the clouds floating across the sky, and I started paying attention to the moon in the daytime, in the nighttime. I started looking at the moon's different phases, its different colors. This is a waxing crescent moon. This is a full moon. And like I mentioned earlier, I bought a unique camera to record all of this. It's the Nikon Coolpix P900. I bought it to personally study all of these things as I looked up and took some interest in the sky. And my interest in the sky and my studies, they led me to look into the missions in outer space. First, I looked into the Apollo missions to the moon. Then I wondered why we hadn't been back to the moon in 45 years. I wondered why even now we didn't at least have a fleet of rovers scouring every inch of the moon, including its other side that we didn't even land on. But apparently there's a competition to get rovers on the moon. But I mean, we have a rover on Mars. Why didn't we at least send one rover up to the moon to constantly observe it, since we no longer send humans? It's just hard for me to imagine that we've already discovered and observed everything we could learn about the moon during those 3 years of Apollo missions. You know, we've never put a woman on the moon, only men. So why not send our first woman to the moon? That would be a spectacular accomplishment. At least I think so. But then I came across a video of Don Pettit. He's a very outspoken NASA astronaut who's been to outer space 3 times. He said this is why we haven't been back to the moon.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Then I found out about the Van Allen radiation belt. Here's what a NASA engineer has to say about the Van Allen radiation belt.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
So yeah, I found it really interesting what that NASA engineer said about the Van Allen belt. And it turns out that other NASA folks have said the same thing about leaving low Earth orbit.
Testing out on space station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit. So we have a really robust exploration program at NASA.
And here's a quick look at the technology that we used to make it to the moon. Here's an image of the command module being rescued in the ocean. This made it to the moon and through the Van Allen belt and back to Earth. Here's video of a command module taking off from the moon. Here are some images I downloaded from NASA's website showing the module and a close-up of the technology that we sent to the moon. So yeah, I was surprised to hear about the Van Allen belt because we went to the moon 9 times and sent 12 men during the Apollo missions from December of 1968 to December of 1972. I'm kind of a detail-oriented guy, so I wanted to learn more about all this because while I'm detail-oriented, I'm also pretty cynical and extremely curious about things that don't immediately click, but I got sidetracked during my research because I came across Neil deGrasse Tyson saying something kind of weird. If you didn't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist, and he's pretty well known inside the science community. So here's what he said.
So you spin, when you spin pizza dough, it kind of flattens out. Yeah. Gets wider in the middle. And so Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning. And it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good word. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
I researched this statement because it didn't make sense to me. And yeah, if you watch the whole video of when he says this, he gets into sea levels and more. But I gotta tell you, he didn't mean the statement as a joke. But it still seems like a joke because who says the Earth is pear-shaped? Pretty odd, right? Either way, his statements and my research led me to download just more images and more videos from NASA's actual website. These are a few of their images of Earth that they took from space. And as I was downloading and researching photos and videos at NASA's website of our first moon landing, the Apollo 11 mission, I discovered something pretty crazy. Apparently, NASA lost the tapes that recorded data of the original Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969. The tapes included biomedical data on astronauts, video footage of the Apollo 11 landing, and all of their telemetry and engineering data. But based on everything I can research, it seems that NASA actually lost not just the Apollo 11 telemetry data, but NASA lost all of the telemetry data from all of the Apollo missions that landed on the moon. That's well over 10,000 lost tapes and over a ton, literally a ton in weight of missing tapes. Fortunately though, they were able to restore the original moon landing footage that was broadcast to Earth. I guess I just found it pretty odd when you consider that the moon landing is one of the, if not the, greatest accomplishments by mankind. Because I figured NASA would take really good care of that stuff and properly label boxes and reams of recordings. Okay, so that seemed pretty careless. But then I stop and think, wouldn't right now be the perfect time to go back to the moon? We've made significant breakthroughs in technology in the past 45 years. So imagine today's technology that NASA could bring to the moon to record and study it. Imagine the beauty that they could show the entire world. Because we could have crystal clear, high-definition footage taken directly from the surface of the moon. I mean 4K resolution stuff that would blow everyone's minds. But instead, everyone seems to be okay with not going back. And that's despite the original video of our first ever moonwalks during the Apollo 11 mission being destroyed. And they say the original recordings, they were actually super clear and nothing like the grainy video that was broadcast to millions on television. But I guess it doesn't really matter either way, since we destroyed the technology to get back to the moon. That's if you believe what Don Pettit said. So my curiosity compelled me to keep researching all of this stuff. And a lot of what I found, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, why does it look like this flag is flapping or blowing in the wind? And this module taking off looks pretty weird to me. So yes, a lot of the moon landings and stuff surrounding outer space can come across as odd. And yeah, maybe each odd thing can be explained away. It's just that when I look at all of the oddities as a whole, it's a bit creepy. And I say creepy because someone I know and someone I love once said this stuff was creepy when they started looking into it. And all of this creepy stuff made me want to keep researching and keep asking questions. But I ended up asking one question that can get you labeled as a nutcase. It's a question that makes people laugh at you. It's a question that I bet you've already seen coming as you've been watching this video. And that question is, did we really go to the moon?
The moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to.
And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here.
A journey to another planet, a manned mission to Mars.
I should tell you that the first mission is scheduled to land on Mars on July the 4th, 1997, Independence Day.
We will undertake extended human missions to the moon as early as 2015, with the goal of living and working there for increasingly extended periods of time. Human missions to Mars and to worlds beyond.
But I just have to say, pretty bluntly here, we've been there before. There's a lot more of space to explore and a lot more to learn when we do. Now, last month we launched a new spacecraft as part of a re-energized space program that will send American astronauts to Mars.
We will establish a foundation for an eventual mission to Mars and perhaps someday to many worlds beyond. If we dare to dream big, and that's what our country is doing again. We're dreaming big.
tell it's real because it looks so fake.
The moon is supposedly 238,000 miles away. It's noticeably much closer.
Just can't conceive it. All we see and hear, the truth that's found. It's all good to see.
The earth was flatted, you went too far, you would fall off. Now the earth is round, if the shape change again, everybody would have start laugh. The average man can't prove up most of the things that he chooses to speak of. And still run research and find out the root of the truth that you seek of. Scholars teach in universities and claim that they're smart.
The party seeks power for its own sake, not as a means but an end. Power over the human mind, and because we control the mind. Reality is inside the skull, wisdom. We control the laws of nature. The stars are not light years, but a few kilometers away.
Let there be light. Divine heaven tonight. Oh, open my sight. Yes, I'm pumping on the ocean line. I see hearts breaking. I feel tears falling. Oh yeah, seas from a million years. I want love stoking. Seas their fears subsiding, sliding down across a million years. But when I get home, I walk right up the street, investigate all the sweet. Yeah, later, baby, switch on your lights tonight. Ooh, pumping on steel tonight. Gonna be fine, that's right. Yes, alright. Pumping on steel tonight. Well, alright. Man breaker. Oh, man maker.
He is God, Isaiah 9:6-7. He is the everlasting Father. He is the Prince of Peace. He is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. And he's going to break through that firmament he created one day and come down through with the brightness of his coming with his saints, with 10,000s of his saints, and make judgment on these liars and these people that believe lies and supported these liars. You're all going to be frying in the lake of fire, except ye repent. Except ye repent. As Jesus said, Luke 13:3-5, except ye repent, ye shall all likewise perish. Jesus didn't come to save the righteous, but sinners, that they'd come to repentance.
Okay, you guys remember how I showed you the maps that were here on Earth before 1958, before the governments took them out? And I'm going to show you the Encyclopedia Britannicas in the public libraries before 1958. Here's volume 2 out of the alphabet A. And we're going to flip to the Antarctica, and this is from 1958, as you can see. Now, we're going to flip to the Antarctica and see what the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1958, before the Antarctic Treaty, says is there. Now, you won't find this in the new encyclopedias because the government's banned them. But what I want you to notice right here is, notice how it says the flights proved inland areas to be featureless in character, with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Take a really, really close look at that. Now I'm going to zoom it in for you. When they returned to New Zealand, these flights proved the inland areas to be features of the character with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, let me show you with an image of what a flat earth map would look like. Now, this is what a latitude 80 degrees south would look like on a flat earth map. As you can see, the dome comes down closer to you over the wall, which will be about 13,000 feet. Now, if you go back out into the center of the earth, or up the North Pole, and try to go up to the firmament with a little bit of calculation, it's going to show that it's about 385,500 feet away. It's really, really simple, folks. Now, if you're not familiar with any of this at all, and you're just now new to all this, you can say, well, this guy is crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But what you got to ask yourself is, why do all the maps before 1958 show a flat earth with the ice wall around it and a firmament, a dome? And why does the encyclopedia tell you that there's a dome there, and it gives you the exact height at a certain latitude and longitude? Well, the reason is because in 1958, that's when all governments and all nations of the world signed the UN treaty to ban all civilians from going to the Antarctica, and NASA came in and erased everything, just like they're erasing everything today. So again, ask yourself, if all this existed before 1958, why doesn't it exist now? How come it all of a sudden was erased and just disappeared out of your history books, out of your encyclopedias, out of your libraries? Wake up, people. Wake up.
Alright, so I used to have this all memorized in school, how many feet a mile was. 5,280 feet. 1 mile. So the encyclopedia says that the firmament would be 385,500 feet. Let's divide that. There it is. Calculator. Alright. So we got 385,500 feet divided by 5,280 feet, which is 1 mile. This will give you how many miles it is. And it's no coincidence that it's 73.011, and then 36. Have they not been telling us these numbers in their gematria all the time? The 73. Correction, that's 72 stones and 13 layers. 72 stones represent 72 miles, and then the 73rd one is God sitting upon the circle of the earth.
A couple of years ago, I was asked to do a Bible study group. I'm thinking Catholics don't do Bible studies, you know. And to do a Bible study group in Houston. I'm going, Catholics definitely don't do Bible studies in Texas. To do a Bible study group in Houston with a bunch of astronauts. Astronauts, oh, I could do that, yeah. So I wound up at a dinner evening of about 12 couples, all of them astronauts and spouses. One of the guys, half of them were Catholic as it turns out, so much for Catholics not doing Bible studies. One of the guys came up to me and said, you know, I just want to let you know, I believe in the absolute truth that creation was made in the 6 days just as described in the book of Genesis. And that's my religion. I just want to let you know that ahead of time. And I'm thinking, you know, have you actually read Genesis? where it says the world is flat and it's covered with a dome and there's water above and below the dome, you know, where does the shuttle go? How come you don't get wet?
Now, one thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
Singing seems like from a million years. Oh, now we're talking. Ooh, fears breaking, running down across a million years.
So we have the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard. But we have the Air Force. Now we're going to have the Space Force because it's a whole.
We're flying so high, we're cracking the sky. Gonna fly out of this dome, my girlfriend and I. Sweet and west, big strides. Way, I'm coming undone, I'm
I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Listen on. Listen on. This is the truth of it. Yet the fighting, it happens here. And it finishes here. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is what's beyond the Thunderdome. I saw the sign, and it opened up my eyes. I saw the sign. Life is demanding, without understanding. I saw the sign, and it opened up my eyes. I saw the sign.
The reason I would be doing that is because hell would have frozen over at WrestleMania. The seas would have parted. The earth would have spun on its axis. The earth would have spun on its axis. Because only fools believe in miracles. The earth would have spun on its axis. The earth would have spun on its axis.
So I guess it's just another coincidence that that rocket smashed into something at 73 miles high. That was the firmament. You could hear how it hit that. It sounded just like it was hitting something strong, molten looking glass, and it sounded like it was covered by water, which is exactly what the Word of God says.
Guy who wants to prove his theory that the Earth is flat successfully launched himself into the air in a homemade rocket. Mike Hughes told the Associated Press he's sore and relieved it's over. Yesterday, he got his rocket about 1,800 feet into the sky above the Mojave Desert. Well, this morning, now he's thinking about his next project, a rocket-propelled balloon that he hopes will prove the Earth is flat. Hughes tried to launch his homemade rocket twice before, but I guess that even being sore and relieved it's over doesn't stop you from trying to do it again.
He seems determined to say the Earth is flat.
All systems are go for launch. T-minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry.
I could see that how that would affect your Christmas.
I made that whole thing up.
What?
I'm sorry. I guess I just wanted to seem interesting. I guess there's a real danger of that on this show.
But there's a pressure.
Well, yeah,
yes,
people come out and they've run out of anecdotes, you know,
Yeah.
and they just start making stuff up.
Yeah.
Like that Neil Armstrong guy. Have you seen him on the talk shows?
Neil Armstrong, you mean the first man to walk on the moon?
Talk about a fish story. Man, and they're buying it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, we all know that people get labeled crazy or get called conspiracy theorists for questioning the Apollo missions or if we ever went to the moon. But please stay with me here, okay? I promise that I've really given this a lot of thought, and I've considered how something like this could actually happen. And since we no longer send people to the moon, I started looking into other info and footage surrounding outer space. And I found some interesting things there too. This is Gemini 4 that was completed in June of 1965. That was well before the Apollo 11 mission. This is the first American spacewalk recorded using an 18mm lens camera, and it recorded at 6 frames per second. But straight up, this looks like stop motion video to me. Back to what's odd. And it's that I can't find any other video of astronauts turning their helmets. A turning helmet appears to be only happening during this first ever spacewalk. Because the thing is that my research showed that the helmets couldn't turn or swivel because they're fixed to an airtight ring base. And once the suit is pressurized, it all becomes extremely stiff. And I don't see the helmet turning again in any of the video for this spacewalk or any others. But there's a lot of footage available that's been taken from the International Space Station, the ISS. This is it here. Of course, a lot of live interviews and videos have been done and recorded from the ISS, and that's resulted in a lot of footage to look at. First, and this one's just kind of really funny to me, it turns out that there's a lot of weird-looking hair on the space station. It's like the hair is gelled or hairsprayed up, like straight up, and it's not supposed to move. Why not just let it flow and showcase its weightlessness? Maybe it would get in the way, but there are also ponytails and such, right?
You look like you're in a studio, maybe in Omaha, Nebraska or something. The shot is so clear. Is this a hoax? Are you really in space still?
See the hair?
Okay, this is a good place to freeze for a moment and transition, because things go from questioning weird hair to deeper levels of strange.
See the hair?
I don't know. We're going to have to do something for you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Watch this.
It looks like this guy is grabbing a wire attached to the guy next to him. He's not grabbing air, and there is no reason why any of these guys would be wearing wires in space. Someone I know wondered that when I showed them this video. Believe me, you're going to be just like the person I talked to, because you will look for answers. You will look for ways to rationalize these things that I show you. Just understand I've asked the same questions. Why, how, and what am I really seeing? This guy with the red shirt looks like his shirt is being pulled by a wire. There are lots of these instances out there that you can research, but it's not exclusive to the ISS. It also happened on the moon itself, and I'll show you that in a moment. But look at the guy in the middle of these men. He looks like he's actually wearing a harness. This was a live interview with Boise State, and look at how awkward this is. Look at this astronaut who turns with his back to us. Pay attention to his back heels. It seems like there may not be enough slack, so his heels stay off the ground. Okay, maybe that's hard for you to believe or see, but look at this awkwardness. This astronaut looks like he's being yanked up by a cable. So how does he get up like this on his own? I mean, the other astronaut did not pull him, but it looks like he was lifted by some external force outside of him, and it's not the guy next to him. Straight up, it appears that these astronauts are attached to cables or some kind of harnesses at times, because it pulls the astronauts in unnatural ways. It even prevents them from falling all the way down, Sometimes they look like puppets on strings due to the way that they're being pulled or moved along. But how else could they be doing this? Well, it could be more special effects and likely something called augmented reality and or green screens. And this is what it looks like. This is an actual video that NASA did. They meant to do this. This is an example of augmented reality. And then there are chroma key screens. So outside of green screens, there are also blue screens. And that's what you're seeing right here. You're seeing the former president being pushed through this NASA area, and behind him is Tim Peake, an astronaut, with what looks like a blue screen, a chroma key screen right behind him. And do you see the green ball? I mean, we can compare footage around that same time compared to what was caught on camera, and you can see it's the same background. It looks like the same deal. And I've only ever found one other video that's ever shown this same checkered blue screen. This is that one other video that I'm showing you right here. But how coincidental is it that they use this blue checkered background, which is extremely similar to ORAD virtual set technology? I mean, this is the kind of stuff you can do on a budget right here, this video. Now here's something else from the ISS. Look at this card floating. This is directly from NASA's YouTube channel. This card, it just doesn't look real. Is there an air conditioner on up there? I mean, look at it. It looks like they're doing everything they can not to laugh. Next, people say that the spacewalks may have been recorded underwater and not on the moon at all. Because, as you can see here, astronauts are definitely trained underwater. So a lot of folks believe that they may have faked the spacewalks by doing it underwater as well. And that seems to make a lot of sense when you study a lot of the spacewalk videos, because you're going to see what looks like a lot of bubbles going all these different directions. Who knows which direction the camera was actually pointing when these were recorded, but they look like air bubbles escaping maybe from underwater pools where some of these things were recorded or faked. Last, there are zero gravity planes.
The only way right now that we can simulate the gravity on Moon, Mars, asteroids is parabolic flight.
So yeah, there is likely hours of video of real weightlessness that people have experienced, but you can't do that all the time. So there needs to be other options, especially for the longer videos like I showed before. Okay, this is a time-lapse video of Earth recorded from the ISS, but I want to step off the space station right now. I want to look at the Apollo 11 crew's first public appearance after returning from the moon.
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade.
So a lot of people question that video and the emotions that they showed at this press conference, especially Neil Armstrong, who was in the middle. But yeah, it looks like maybe they were impacted by being on the moon. That could be a significant moment. Just as a heads up, this news conference occurred on September 16th, 1969, and these astronauts returned to Earth on July 24th, 1969. So yeah, it's less than 2 months for them to get their bearings, but it turns out that they did forget a lot in that short time frame.
When you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I can't imagine that he was debriefed and that kind of question wasn't asked. What he saw, what he felt, what he experienced while on the moon. And now listen to Mike Collins, who was sitting to the left of Neil Armstrong.
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, you were a little bit concerned, you said about...
So now Mike doesn't remember seeing any stars either. We have to remember that the reporter asked about them looking up at the sky and if they could see the stars based on the circumstances. So Mike Collins' answer has got to apply to his experience in the command module itself because he didn't walk on the moon or go down to its surface. But let's look again at Neil's response to what Mike said.
I don't remember seeing any.
Neil, you were a little bit concerned, you said about...
Notice his body language, and it looks like Neil even whispers something under his breath to Mike. Was he telling him to simply shut up? I don't know, but the interaction looks really odd to me. All right, here is another interview with Neil Armstrong. And right after I show you this quick piece, I'll immediately share a few more statements made by other astronauts who shared what they could or couldn't see while in outer space.
Mr. Armstrong, I do realize that when you were on the moon, you had very little time for gazing upwards. But could you tell us something about what the sky actually looks like from the moon, the sun, the earth, the stars, if any, and so on?
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon. The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen, although there have been some reports of seeing planets. I myself did not see planets from the surface, but I suspect they might be visible.
Whilst
from
in
Mark
space,
Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah.
All
because
the
you
time.
can see. Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
Space, and you're on the sun side of the orbit. The sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the
you
Milky Way
see
galaxy.
the Magellan.
Pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
So this black space you're looking at on your screen right now could or couldn't be what you see when viewing outer space from outer space. I guess you have to go to outer space or walk on the moon to confirm this truth for yourself. But I'm going to stay focused on the objects in outer space because I want to ask why the images of stars and planets taken by satellites in space look so different to what I actually observe with my camera. Here's Venus again, as seen through my Nikon P900. Here's Arcturus again. Here's Vega again. Here's another star, Antares. It looks pretty cool too. I showed you my online research earlier, except I can't find any video of these amazing stars or planets that were taken by NASA. Now we're looking at NASA's website. From 1 million miles away, NASA camera shows moon crossing face of Earth. It says a NASA camera aboard the Deep Space Climate Observatory Discover captured a unique view of the moon as it moved in front of the sunlit side of the Earth last month. The series of test images shows the fully illuminated dark side of the moon that is never visible from Earth. The images were captured by NASA's Earth Polychromatic Imaging Camera, EPIC, a 4-megapixel CCD camera and telescope on the Discover satellite orbiting 1 million miles from Earth. First off, that looks very similar to the same side of the moon that I look at. Be interested to know if it's identical. But here below it says, this animation features actual satellite images of the far side of the moon, illuminated by the sun, as it crosses between the Discovery spacecraft's Earth polychromatic imaging camera EPIC and telescope. This is supposed to be the moon passing the Earth from 1 million miles away. So yes, at the same time, I'm criticizing and thinking that their video, their animation doesn't even look real, but I'm also still wondering why we just don't have more videos by NASA of outer space itself. But there are some recordings out there. There's the Cassini spacecraft out there near Saturn that recently plunged into Saturn. And then there is the Juno spacecraft observing Jupiter. But I'm sorry, all of these look like CGI images to me. They just don't look real. So these spacecraft are satellites, right? What about satellites in general? I looked up satellites online, and the satellites are all CGI or fake-looking images when I search them. That doesn't prove anything, but it's another place where primarily CGI images are found when you start researching this kind of stuff. And I do think there's a lot more CGI out there, because there's more stuff that just doesn't seem right when you start looking into it. Like the SpaceX missions. These are landings recorded by SpaceX and published by them. This is CRS-6. This is CRS-8. This is CRS-10. This is CRS-11. Again, this just doesn't look real to me. And how can a rocket steer a landing like this? These rockets are like huge, massive, heavy sticks, except they can rocket to the ground in reverse. They can take off right, re-enter, flip around, and come to the ground in reverse and land with this kind of crazy precision using these tiny little fins. They're not even fins. They don't have wings. So yeah, this is a lot that I'm showing you, a lot that I'm asking you to question. But that's because there's a rabbit hole of random things that just don't make sense. And they don't look real.
Thomas Bosch, painting Planet Earth, when many thought that the Earth was still flat. So it represents to me the promise of the future and enlightenment. When many thought that the Earth was still flat.
Just another flat earth with dome reference in The King of Queens, this time in the episode titled Separation and Anxiety, when they're at a movie theater. It's a very short clip. It's only 15 seconds, but within 15 seconds, it's packed with a lot of occult symbolism. As always, hidden in plain sight. Let's just take a look at that right now.
That was the worst piece of crap I've ever seen. I know, and the ending was so lame.
There's no gravity, so they build a roof over the entire world? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it sucked. Definitely sucked.
Now, in that 15 seconds, you're going to see so much occult hidden in plain sight. Let's just first take a look at the very opening scene of this clip. You see the movie theater. It's called Loyola, and the movie's titled Floaters. And you'll see these devil horns. It looks like a ram's head, but basically it could represent devil horns or a ram or whatnot. It's just occult symbolism. Now, the name of the movie itself, Floaters. Take a look, and what do you get? You get 33 in numerology. And of course, a very interesting name, Floaters. Now, show the image. Of course, for those that know, the highest degree in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is 33. So, don't want to forget about that. Now, the name of the theater, Loyola, this all has to do with the founder of the Jesuits. And that is Loyola himself. As you can see here, this is a Freemasonic Lodge in Canada, and they give his bio. Just more images here. Now you see, of course, the sun symbolism. You'll see it here as well. Of course, the Freemasonic hand sign. Now let's take a look at this image here. Of course, again, the sun symbolism. And what do you see painted on the door? The sun rays with the sun symbolism. This is how they love to do it. And of course, he mentioned the roof. No gravity and a roof over the world. That is a flat earth reference. Here you go. This is the reality we live in. Not in a so-called ball earth spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. It's supposedly moving at 66,600 miles an hour. And now I'm going to play my previous clip again with the flat earth with the dome reference in The King of Queens. Truth in movies, comedy, and TV shows. In this case, with the TV show titled The King of Queens, starring Kevin James. Just take a listen to what Kevin James says during these segments. The mention basically of the flat earth with the dome above it.
Let's open up our world. You know, I don't want to open up our world. I want to close our world. Build a dome over it.
But if you don't want to meet any new people, why'd you agree to go out with them?
Because Carrie can't know about the dome.
And there you go. Carrie can't know about the dome, which is a reference to the masses. Basically, we're not supposed to know about the dome.
Because Carrie can't know about the dome. We all gotta share this big spinning rock.
We gotta share this big spinning rock. More mockery.
We all gotta share this big spinning rock. And all is quiet in the dome.
More of the same.
And all is quiet in the dome.
Now this is a perfect example for a useful idiot, this Kevin James. Before playing the clip, just take a look at his t-shirt he's wearing here. Of course, he's just an actor. The lines are given to him. His wardrobe is given to him. Again, nothing more than a useful idiot. You see, 1969, this is a reference to the year of the moon landing, which is, of course, a hoax. Now take a listen.
I need to know how this whole dome business works.
There you go. More of the same. Just for reference, I'm going to play some previous videos on the flat earth with the dome above us. How obvious can it be? A lot of people, they're in denial. Of course they are. You've been programmed for 30, 40, 50, 60 years to believe lies. It's very hard to change. You know, once you're programmed, I understand that. Understand, for those that are new to the concept, all these teachers, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, universities, they never been in space. They never saw the ball Earth from space. They were just relying on NASA and trusting NASA a government agency that they're telling the truth. Not first-hand knowledge whatsoever. This is how the governments, not just the U.S. government, all these governments are working together to deceive the masses. People might ask, why would they lie to us about living on a ball earth when we actually live on a flat earth with a dome? And as I've stated in previous videos, it's all about supporting the theory of evolution. So everything has to coincide with the school books. Can't teach evolution and teach at the same time that we live on a flat earth with a dome. That would obviously mean that there is a creator, which there is, of course. Now just taking a look at the ball earth, or the supposed ball earth, where the axis is 23.4 degrees off being vertical, it leads you to 66.6 degrees off horizontal. If you think this is just a coincidence, take a look at this. Earth is supposedly orbiting around the sun and moving at 66,600 miles an hour. Another thing I want to point out here, let's take a look. Now let's take a look at this model with the Earth supposedly orbiting the sun, and of course the moon orbiting Earth. And while this is all taking place, Earth is supposedly rotating. Let's take a look at this image here. Polaris, the North Star. Take a look at this model here. Now, explain to me, for anybody out there, how is it possible for the North Star or Polaris to remain constant above the supposed North Pole while it's orbiting around the sun? It makes absolutely no sense because it doesn't happen. It does not take place. That's simple. Now let's take a look at this. Like I said, the Earth supposedly spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Gravity holds on the water, and the water is perfectly still. How is this possible? The Earth is supposedly spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. Wouldn't you think the water would fly off? This is not possible. People can't grasp reality because all they have been fed are lies. I showed this image before, Under the Dome by Stephen King. Again, mockery in plain sight. Truth in plain sight. And let's look at this space shuttle launch from Cape Canaveral in Florida. As I mentioned before, the reason they have these shuttle launches, or supposed shuttle launches, into space, off the coast, so basically these rockets can land right in the water, right in the ocean. That's what it's all about. And later on, again, you see the supposed space shuttles, which are nothing more than airplanes coming for a landing. It's just like a movie. It's all edited, fit together for the public. Just take a look at this image as well. You really believe this space shuttle is going to outer space? This is completely ridiculous. Now let's take a look at this image here put together by David from deep inside the rabbit hole. Just look at the flight paths that airlines make people take. You will not see plane crossing from South Africa to Australia. That would be, of course, the shortest route. Here's the flat Earth model. Like he states, there's no shortcuts. And of course, UN logo, the same exact thing. You can go to this one website, which is called Flight Radar 24. And it shows all this flight activity worldwide. Interesting enough, you see all these planes flying all over the place. Understand, the so-called northern hemisphere, with the flat Earth model, it does not affect flight paths. When you get to the south, that's where everything is stretched out. This is why you don't see these flights. Take a look here. You'll notice you'll never see, if you go to Flight Radar 24, you'll never see flights in the process of crossing from Southern South America to South Africa or South Africa to Australia. What I witnessed myself watching it over time is you won't see an actual plane crossing, but right when it reaches land, then all of a sudden it appears on radar. How amazing. I'm talking about how the game is rigged with this matrix and why so many can't see or understand what's taking place. Let's look at some of the deceivers. Of course, the public school system is going to teach, the ball earth, which is expected. When it comes to these so-called Christians, these truth speakers such as Ken Hovind, this is how they control the matrix. They're going to have him tell you the absolute 100% truth when it comes to evolution, but he's not going to tell you the truth about the flat earth. So many of his presentations, you'll see that globe in plain sight right in front of his desk. He's pointing at it. And again, they're giving you 95% truth when he talks about evolution being a lie. When it comes to the ball earth, he's going to deny it. He's going to deny the earth is flat. He's going to stick to the ball earth theory. This is how they operate. Let's take a look at Ken Hovind. He was a member of the Prophecy Club, nothing but a club of deceivers. I pointed this out before on my previous channel with all the Masonic hand signs. With this one with Doc Marquise. It just so happens their zip code in Topeka, Kansas starts with 666. Now what are the chances of that? They go out of their way to have the occultic numbers in plain sight. Like I just referenced, 666, 777, the 33, the 911, always in plain sight. And also, the signs and symbols, the sign of silence, all these supposed oath keepers of keeping secrets. Interesting enough, look at this Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield doing the same sign of silence. More recent news story with David Bowie supposedly passing away. He is part of the rigged game, the matrix that we live in. Now, some might ask, if this is all true, why doesn't the news say so? Why does the news expose this as truth? Understand, people that are awake already realize this. The media is 100% controlled. Some might say, well, what about my preacher? What about my pastor? Why don't they tell me the truth? You see the problem here? All the Masonic hand signs, just like all the rest of the deceivers. These are all Freemasons, all liars. The game is 100% rigged. Just look at John Hagee's hands here, the devil horns. Take a look at this hand sign that he does twice here. Just like Anton LaVey. These are all Satanists. When the Bible states Satan deceives the world, that is very literal, as you can see. So the people that go to church, that attend services, they don't hear their preacher say 9/11 is not what we're told. Sandy Hook was a hoax. What happened in Paris, France is a hoax. This is because all those involved, all of TV, is 100% controlled. And again, this is how they control the Matrix.
generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
Rockets don't have brakes. It literally stopped. All of that angular momentum from the rotation of the rocket and the linear momentum from flying up just stopped. No, it had to have hit something. What would have it hit? If it hit a solid surface, the rocket would have been destroyed, and most likely the camera too, so we wouldn't have the footage, and obviously that's not the case.
Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it.
Kicks and deals. It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now.
There's no place to go.
Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it. And it may be hard to see tonight, but we are all standing under a glass ceiling right now.
People figured out that we were an enclosed system. The more advanced we got, it would be the biggest thought on our minds. That's all we care about. If you could make a wildlife preserve 1,000 miles square, all people, all human beings would do is just be knocking on the fence constantly. Why is this fence here? Who built the fence? Why are we in here? And so on and so on.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
The drink the astronauts took to the moon.
Astronauts to the moon.
Over the years, I made several videos regarding so-called astronaut Don Pettit, basically the head of mockery when it comes to NASA. I find it very interesting what he says during this interview from a few months back. He basically states the technology to go back to the moon has been destroyed. He'd love to go back in a nanosecond, but that technology does not exist anymore. But then he goes on to talk about going to Mars. Okay, first off, before even showing this video clip with him speaking about, again, this technology, which I find very bizarre, saying it's been destroyed. How was it destroyed? He doesn't go into details how this so-called technology that they used to go to the moon years ago has been destroyed. Let's take a look first off, again, when it comes to mockery in this video clip. Basically, again, mocking his audience, his followers during this presentation. Take a listen to what he says here.
Astronauts are really, really good at making pictures in space that look like you've never left the planet. In fact, it's almost hard-pressed to tell whether you're in space or not in this picture. We've got some fancy backdrops, I guess.
What a strange person this is. Basically, again, if you follow my channel and see my previous videos on this so-called astronaut Don Pettit, of course, none of these men have been in space. They're nothing more than basically actors playing a role on the world stage, making the masses, the millions upon millions of people throughout the world believe they've been in space when they've never been in space at all. Now I'm going to play the video clip itself with Don Pettit again being interviewed. Just very bizarre interview. Not going into details how this so-called technology to go to the moon has been destroyed. And at the very end, I'll point out something very interesting what he says. People need to read between the lines. Take a listen.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Going back to 2013 and the supposed Chinese moon landing with this probe, again, nothing but complete garbage.
Well, this is the camera on the lander. This is the first picture of the moon taken by Chang'e 3. Well, it seems pretty close already. We can see the lunar surface very clearly.
Yeah.
It is only a few kilometers above the lunar surface. And because there is no atmosphere, so it's very clear image. And it is daytime. It is also daytime. The lighting is perfect for picture taking. This is a picture taken by China.
For the sake of the video, I'm going to speed this up a little bit and just show again how ridiculous the supposed probe moon landing by the Chinese space program. It's a complete joke.
The pictures taken on the camera of Chang'e 3 of the lunar surface. And these are the last 30 minutes for the journey of Chang'e 3 until it landed on the moon.
What exactly is taking this footage of the supposed moon landing?
Well, it is hovering again. It landed on the moon. Chang'e 3 is on the moon. The first.
These people must feel completely ridiculous clapping over some CGI fakery. But they're just doing their job, and I'm sure they're being paid very well.
Chinese lunar probe is on the surface of our celestial neighbor, the moon.
But going to Mars should be one of the next series of steps that humans do. The first step should be going back to the moon for a number of technical reasons and exploration reasons, and then after that, Mars, maybe high orbit in Venus atmosphere, maybe going to Europa. There's all kinds of targets to go to, places of interest in our solar system. The only limit to human future is in our own imagination.
And then there is a film positioning itself as a documentary called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. And while it looks like there's some disinformation in this video, it does address a few things that kind of make you think twice. It does seem to address some valid questions. Here's some video from it.
The cost of the 3 moon rovers in 21st century currency? Nearly $60 million each, though they had fewer parts than a Jeep. Where was all this money going? Then there's the flag, blowing in the wind at least twice on the atmosphereless moon. Here the editor cuts to a still shot of the flag just as the effect becomes noticeable. Here it is unchecked. This rare clip, attained decades ago, was never re-released with the inevitable increase in experience and scrutiny. To demonstrate 1/6 gravity, a bouncy, floaty feel to the astronauts' movements would be similarly achieved with relative simplicity. Slow motion. You are viewing the scenes as they aired more than 30 years ago. Now let's look at them with the speed doubled. It becomes discernible that they are, in fact, in Earth's gravity, and are no more leaving the ground than they would on Earth. It is clear from these rarely seen color television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 brought a high-resolution color video camera with them on their mission, yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera. In fact, the networks complained because in addition to this, they were forced to shoot the images second generation off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Perhaps this was precisely what NASA and the federal government had in mind. After all, it was a first, regardless of where they were. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven. And finally, the element that seals their fate. Of all the footage of Apollo 11 requested from NASA over a 5-year period, one gem was discovered just before the completion of this documentary. An old reel received by mistake. It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin Jr. and Neil Armstrong, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color, with exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance, in order to falsely demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. It cannot be misconstrued that this staging was done for some other reason prior to the mission, for the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit. Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public, and these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private, until now. Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil. We just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get to playback, we can sort of correlate what we're seeing. Thank you very much.
Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light. We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
This is where the astronaut is back in view, but the lens was supposed to be on the window. Is it legitimate? I don't know. There's just so many weird things about the Apollo missions when you research them. And again, I'm not vouching for a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, but it does address a few questions that seem to make sense, that seem to be worth asking. And then there are the space shuttles, which are supposed to be gliders when they re-enter our atmosphere and they land. So space shuttles don't have the appearance of what you would think is a glider, and they make what appears to be lots of crazy loud jet propulsion noises when landing on runways, just like regular jets do when they're landing.
Commander Charlie Hobart flaring up the shuttle's nose for landing, and as you can see, the main gear of in place.
And since we're talking about jet propulsion, let's go back to the moon for a moment, because some have pointed out how there's no crater underneath the lunar module landing. The jet propulsion would have likely created a crater, or at least some type of big marking from its landing. There isn't any dust anywhere though, not even on the legs or feet of the module. I would think that some kind of dust or rocks should have been blown around from the lunar module landing on the moon. Keep in mind that the module had a 10,000-pound thrust engine, except it seems to have left no disturbance underneath it. Also, Neil Armstrong is sitting on top of that engine when it's initially landing on the moon, but he's heard clear as day when they're landing.
60 seconds. Lights on. Forward. Forward. 40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. Straight shadow. 4 forward, drifting to the right a little. 30 seconds. Forward. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle. Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Without GoPro or fisheye lens, when I send a balloon up 100,000 feet and it shows the horizon flat, I can't go against that. When I see skylines 60 to 100 miles away, when spherical geometry says they should be behind the curve, all this stuff isn't adding up.
From Joshua Nowicki, and what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I say, continue to believe pathological liars and you're an idiot.
By the way, how much money is being spent on space? You should emblazon this in your head. Here it goes. This is the pie chart. $330 billion a year is spent on space. Spent on space. Spent on space. Spent on space.
The mayor demanded that. What the mayor demanded that the chip. What the mayor demanded that the chip boy. As a response to allegations. Oh, yeah, it seemed to have something stuck in there. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. In other news, the Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
What did he just say?
Check the prompter.
There just seems to be so many questionable circumstances involving NASA. And yeah, this next one, I'm talking about the Space Shuttle Challenger of 1986 that exploded soon after takeoff. And please know that I'm taking this one carefully but seriously, because this one involves life and death. I just believe there are enough intriguing questions about the crew members on that exploding ship to touch on it here. Because 6 of the 7 crew members are considered alive by many people today, because there are 6 people living in the United States who closely resemble 6 original crew members from Challenger. The Challenger's commander was Francis Richard Scobie. Today there's a Richard Scobie who is CEO of a Chicago marketing company. These guys have some eerily similar features, like the same kind of wide-set eyes that both seem to be tilted in their corners. The pilot was Michael J. Smith, and there's another Michael J. Smith living today, a professor, and they seem to look the same. Same smiles, it looks like the same teeth inside those smiles, both have blue eyes, and more. One of the mission specialists was Ronald McNair. It turns out that he has a brother named Carl, who's living today, and they look like they could be twin brothers. Another mission specialist was Ellison Onizuka. He also has a lookalike brother still alive today, and his brother's name is Claude. Another mission specialist was Judith Resnick, and there's a Yale law professor with similar features and identical name living today. And then there was the teacher Sharon Krista McAuliffe. Well, there is a Syracuse professor named Sharon A. McAuliffe who looks a lot like the original crew member with the same first name and last name. Again, I do not take sharing this information lightly, because it is a serious thing when you question if people may have really died. So I don't know about this for sure. I just know that the odds seem pretty crazy that 6 of the 7 crew members have people living today with appropriately similar ages, nearly identical names, and strikingly similar features. And what about the fact that we're now planning to send humans to Mars, and we want to colonize it? So forget about inhabiting the moon, which would be way easier because it's way closer and we've already put people on the moon, but instead let's go inhabit Mars, which is much further away and way harder to get to. So everything I've shared so far, to me it's really bizarre and odd. Much of it doesn't add up, if you ask me, But still, many of you will find explanations. There's a lot of info out there, but based on what my eyes have seen, based on using my own personal logic, even if I wanted to eliminate half of the things I just showed you as untrue, I simply can't explain away the other half as untrue because there is too much that just doesn't make sense in my head.
Why don't you just put the end to the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Cybro, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy. Why don't you talk to the administrator at NASA? We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight.
I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you get
I get that. I appreciate it.
And get the hell out of the house.
Well, take your stuff and get the fuck out. Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
I mean, the shadows interrupt. I don't give a damn about all that shit.
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
I'm making this video specifically for believers in God and the Bible. Forget about the atheists. Forget about the evolutionists. They're all toast. They're done. They're finished. They have been deceived by Satan, the god of this world, as stated in Corinthians 4:4. Now, for the Bible believers that use science to prove your point with your belief that the earth is a ball spinning in the sky, understand Bible scripture. It's all here. We're in the very beginning in Genesis. It talks about the waters below and the waters above. Also mentioned in Psalms. It's also mentioned in the Bible how the sun moves and the moon as well. The stars fall to earth, mentioned in Matthews and Revelations. Okay, these are the so-called asteroids and meteors. Everything we're given by science, the history books, the schools, the media. It's basically a twist of truth. Things do fall from the sky, but it's not what we're told. They're stars. Those are the fragments from stars that fall to the ground. Now, it's mentioned 50 times how there are ends of the earth. 50 times. So again, there's no ends on a ball. It also mentions in the Bible how there's foundations, mentioned 25 times. Also, how the earth is immovable, it's fixed. Many times it's mentioned. I showed this clip before in a previous video. And this again is truth in plain sight. With those that control Hollywood, showing us the truth in these cartoons. This is how they do it. They love to put the truth in what seems to be ridiculous, such as cartoons, Illuminati card games, movies, commercials. This is how they do it. They love to mock us with truth, with these ridiculous cartoons in this case. Take a watch.
Steroid Santa Claus kicks and deals. It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium.
Now do you understand how this matches up with the Bible verse in Genesis? The waters above. You people understand and get it, what's taking place here. This is biblical. And this is meant as mockery. When people watch this, they have no understanding what this is all about. Now with the supposed live feed from the ISS, you get this bogus CGI satellite here. Where are all the rest of the satellites? Where are they? How can people see through this deception? You believe this is real? You gotta be kidding me. Again, complete mockery on the masses that take lies as truth and truth as lies. With all the videos I'm making covering the flat earth lately, I'm getting a lot of questions about satellites. You know, this is their evidence that the earth is a ball. Now let's take a look at these images of these satellites. Do these look real to you? I want you people that talk about satellites all the time to show me a real image of a satellite. All you get are these CGI images, not a single real image of a satellite anywhere. Why is that? All we get is this fake garbage. You get a CGI satellite, you get a CGI planet, all bogus, 100%. So, for all you people coming to my channel, talking about satellites, make a video, produce real satellites. You can't do it because they don't exist, period. Supposedly close to 3,000 satellites up in space. Again, all we get is this fake garbage. Now let's look at what ISS has to produce as far as real satellites. Get that fake garbage. You get this. All CGI, computer animated. Looks like a video game. Where are the satellites? You don't see any because they don't exist. Look at this. Wow. You believe this is real? If you believe this is real, you're going to believe every single lie NASA, the media, your government tells you. You've been completely blinded from birth. You believe everything you've been told your whole life. And any time someone questions an official story by your leaders, you get angry, you get upset, you get defensive. Because no one likes to be told they've been lied to their entire lives. Just keep watching this video, and again, show me where the satellites are. There are none. At least with this fake computer animated garbage, I'm surprised they didn't make any fake satellites. I guess they think, oh, here's one. This must be real. Because this video is provided by NASA. But all you get, again, is computer animated garbage. Your whole life is nothing but garbage. Full of lies. That's all you get. You get angry at so-called conspiracy theorists who tell you the truth. Haters of truth, lover of lies. Now let's take a look at some photos supposedly from NASA of the ball Earth, the blue marble, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour in space. You believe these are real. All fake garbage. Again. How people can't see this? No clue. It's a waste of time arguing with these idiots that can't see their own two eyes. Unbelievable how the masses completely blinded by their masters. In a form of mockery with Hollywood, they're going to tell you the truth right in front of your face as form of mockery. Under the Dome, that TV show, it's exactly what we're living under, the dome. That's why all the images of Earth from space, all the fake satellite images, they're all fake. Why? They cannot get past the dome to take real images of Earth. That simple. So again, with these TV shows, such as the Big Bang Theory as well, they like to put the occult all in plain sight with these TV shows. And again, like I stated before, when you see a rainbow after it's done raining and the sky clears, what you get here are these water beads that act like a mirror that get a reflection from the dome that is above us. More of the same. That's a reflection. Again, the water acting as a mirror a reflection of the dome above us. And I found this pretty interesting with the Sky Dome, another form of mockery with the name Sky Dome. It was built by IBI in Canada. What do you see? The upside down pentagram, right side up pentagram. The occult in plain sight. And this is their official website. Look it up yourself. I'll show some more images here from their website, giving the details about the Sky Dome. Now the occult with the Sky Dome. And what do you see here? The obelisk. Right outside. Again, all about the occult. All these large companies, to get their contracts, to be successful, they know their role. They know what they need to do. Just looking at some images here. More images. This is the one that's right in your face. You know, on their home page for the Sky Dome, this is their image. Again, with the occult in plain sight. Completely ridiculous how people can't see that those that rule this world worship Satan. Now, talking about Sky Dome, let's take a look here with The Simpsons. And of course, as I mentioned before, Matt Groening of The Simpsons, being a Freemason, what does he have? They're going to put the Sky Dome in one of their episodes. And of course, more little occultic symbol here. They're all about the occult. Everyone that makes on top of this world, with no exception.
You want me to knock you in the head?
Well, I want you to swear to God on the Bible that you walked on the moon. If you walked on the moon, we're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you if you don't leave me alone.
But after looking over all of the information and evidence surrounding our explorations into outer space, the moon landings, and what science teaches me about it all, based on what I can actually observe and prove myself, I'm now at the point where I don't believe we ever went to the moon. I don't believe we've gone to outer space in the way that they tell us. I don't believe an International Space Station is orbiting the Earth. I don't believe it's possible. And there are many more extremely compelling reasons why I believe this, beyond the limited information that I've presented so far here. Of course, I promise to show you much more here, but I want to pause before moving on, because this information may be new to you, and that can make it hard to believe or even consider. You may be laughing at me right now, or wondering when Dave lost his mind and went full conspiracy theorist. I used to think that it was crazy before I started researching all of this. But what if it was possible? What if what you've been told was not the truth? Or maybe it was full of half-truths? Would it be the first time that someone lied to you? Would it be the first time that your government lied to you? It's easy for me to say that, especially when you may be thinking the opposite. But no matter what, I'm the one making these claims, so I need to present more information to show how all of the pieces could fit. So please just stay with me here, because we've barely touched the first layer of how odd and bizarre things may really be. Okay, Earth is what we're going to get into right now. We're going to focus on the place that you and I both live and exist. First off, what does the Bible say about Earth? Let's look at the first book of the Bible and see how the story of creation begins. In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form, and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. So that said earth came into existence on the first day of creation. except the God of the Bible withheld the creation of the sun, moon, and stars until the fourth day, which is revealed inside Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. So the way that I read that is that earth is unique and it holds center stage inside God's creation. But whether you are a Christian or not, isn't it at least possible that earth could be the center and heart of everything? But whether you believe that earth is the heart or not, it turns out that it's really hard to get good photos of earth. And obviously, we have to go to outer space to get photos of earth itself. This is an article at the White House, A New Blue Marble. July 20th, 2015, NASA releases its new blue marble photo, first such photo since 1972. No one on this planet had ever seen a whole picture of the Earth until 1972. And you can see it's also at medium, and that's where I'm going to go to now to look at that because it has a cleaner layout. You can see it's the same deal by Scott Kelly, NASA astronaut. No one on this planet had ever seen a whole picture of the Earth until 1972. Then you get the blue marble. This is a photo of it. It was the first full photo of Earth taken on December 7th, 1972, and that was the Apollo 17 spacecraft that took that. You got another photo here. Looks a little different. Okay, you got another image. Another image. So why is the blue marble a bigger deal than these? Turns out it's quite tricky to take a good photo of the entire Earth. The planet is big, and there's a lot of lighting issues. As a result of these challenges, NASA, NOAA, and other science agencies most often rely on composite images to depict our planet. These images stitch together multiple high-resolution snapshots taken by satellites already in orbit to produce one seamless portrait of the Earth. And that's what the three photos above are, composite images, produced by NASA over the past 15 years, released respectively in 2002, 2007, and 2012. Composite imaging is an extremely useful tool for helping people understand the Earth, like this black marble, which, by stitching together multiple views of the planet, shows a full global view of the Earth's city lights. That's why today I am excited to see that NASA has released its new blue marble, the first of many more to come later this year. The blue marble is the first fully illuminated snapshot of the Earth captured by the Discover satellite. It looks like it's a joint NASA, NOAA, and U.S. Air Force mission. And there's a guy who's famous for doing these composite images and manipulating data and putting it all together. And this is the guy right here. This is from NASA's website. It's an interview. Data visualizer and designer Robert Simon. And they ask him, what do you do? And what is most interesting about your role here at Goddard? How do you help support Goddard's mission? And he says, my role is to make imagery from Earth sciences data. I turn data into pictures. I look for new interesting events that NASA satellites have seen or that are hidden in the latest data to find anything interesting that shows off NASA's unique capabilities. Finding things is the fun part. I rely on engineers and scientists to produce the data. Okay, they ask him, what is the coolest thing you've ever done as part of your job at Goddard? And he says, the last time anyone took a photograph from above low Earth orbit that showed an entire hemisphere, one side of a globe, was in 1972 during Apollo 17. He also says by 2002, we finally had enough data to make a snapshot of the entire Earth. So we did. The hard part was creating a flat map of the Earth's surface with 4 months of satellite data. Rito Stockley, now at the Swiss Federal Office of Meteorology and Climatology, did much of this work. Then we wrapped the flat map around a ball. My part was integrating the surface, clouds, and oceans to match people's expectations of how Earth looks from space. That became the famous blue marble. Okay, I know I already touched on this earlier, but I just keep wondering. Why doesn't NASA just deploy a rover to the moon, equipped with a camera at least comparable to my Nikon P900? Then they would have it on the moon's surface all the time. Because they could take continuous images of the entire Earth, throughout the different seasons and months. They could zoom in on continents and islands, and maybe even more, like I do of the moon from here on Earth. Wouldn't you get good and accurate images with that approach? Wouldn't that make sense? But instead, they have a data visualizer / designer who compiles all of the different data, and then that data gets stitched together by that person. But let's just step back again. And I'd like to review the Science 101, some of the basics surrounding the Earth, the Sun, and the solar system. I'm talking about the basic info that we're all taught about Earth, the Sun, and the solar system, and how they all move and work. First, the Earth rotates eastward around an invisible line known as its axis. And I've actually got some video of the Earth spinning provided by NASA. This is an official video by NASA of the Earth spinning. It was captured over a 25-hour period. It is really, really hard to see any of the continents in this video. I guess it was just too cloudy for those 25 hours. Okay, now I'm looking at live science. How fast does Earth move? As passengers on Earth, we are all carried around the sun at a mean velocity of 66,600 miles per hour. Add that dizzying notion to the fact that we are spinning at the equator at a 1,000 miles per hour clip, an action that causes the planet to bulge outward. Of course, these velocities are relative to the sun and to the poles, respectively. Okay, how fast is Earth moving? Let's look at that again. As an Earthling, it's easy to believe that we're standing still. After all, we don't feel any movement in our surroundings. But when you look at the sky, you see evidence that we are moving. Okay, how fast are we spinning? I just went through this, but it's interesting to see another source, and it talks about, depending on where you're located, right? Sun and galaxy move too. To blow your mind even more, the sun has an orbit of its own in the Milky Way. The sun is about 25,000 light years from the center of the galaxy, and the Milky Way is thought to be about 100,000 light years across. We are thought to be about halfway out from the center, according to Stanford University. The sun and the solar system appear to be moving at 200 kilometers per second, or at an average speed of basically over 500,000 miles per hour. The Milky Way too moves in space relative to the other galaxies. In about 4 billion years, the Milky Way will collide with its nearest neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy. Everything in the universe is therefore in motion. Now let's go back to the Live Science article. How fast does Earth move? Let's touch on the velocities and why we don't feel them. The reason we don't feel the rush is the same we aren't pinned to our seats while in an airplane moving at a constant speed. Velocity can only be measured with reference to another object moving at a different velocity, and we cannot feel velocity while in a constant frame of reference. This is why it might be news to you that our entire solar system is whizzing around the center of our galaxy at a fairly inconceivable, it's over 500,000 miles per hour. The galaxy is also moving with respect to other galaxies in the universe. And for all we know, the whole universe is moving, but now we're getting into great unknowns. Okay, so I just went over a lot of numbers, but it's all basic stuff. But that's pretty fast, right? I do think that it's kind of odd that we don't feel any of that spinning or rotation. I think these speeds are mind-blowing when you try and wrap your head around them or even imagine them. Here's a snapshot of someone's visual representation of what the solar system is doing according to the science and the speeds that I just shared. I think it's pretty wild when you just stop and look at this and think about it, because we're just flying through space. We're just a big rock moving around with other big objects. I do find it interesting that we're taught all of this as fact, except there are a lot of great unknowns, and all we have are primarily CGI videos and composite images to look at and review. And if you aren't picking up what I'm putting down, then let me be really blunt here. I don't believe this visual representation is accurate. I believe something else could be true. And it's all based on the foundation that we never went to the moon. It's all based on the belief that we have not explored outer space.
Watching them lie through their teeth, carrying on a hoax that is so outrageous that they're beyond human. They couldn't cover it up. They were just too human.
Exactly. You can see on Neil Armstrong particularly, he doesn't want to lie. This guy just doesn't want to lie. No. He's looking down. He just doesn't want to say anything. This is why he didn't give any interviews for the rest of his life.
Look at that. Please do look at that, folks. YouTube video of the first Apollo crew to come back at press conference. It's really embarrassing. I mean, it's just embarrassing. The lie was so big that they really couldn't fake it that well. It was too much for them.
And all of that happened in a little town called York, Maine, across the United States from where we're talking to you right now.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation.
But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation.
Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. For this flight, it's time to head home.
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now. And you can
the United States has shunned the Paris Climate Agreement, but it has big plans beyond planet Earth.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
President Trump wants to send American astronauts back to the moon and to places no man has ever gone before. Trump's first space policy directive orders NASA to refocus on human exploration and discovery, 45 years after its last Apollo mission to the moon. Trump said the initiative would create many jobs, and he hoped to see a lunar mission serve as a stepping stone to Mars.
We will not only plant our flag and leave our footprint, we will establish a foundation for an eventual mission to Mars, and perhaps someday to many worlds beyond.
Little detail was given of the plans, but many on social media were quick to deride it, with some quipping that if America is going to lead in space, then why not send Trump there first?
So you spin, when you spin pizza dough, it kind of flattens out. Yeah. Gets wider in the middle. And so Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning. And it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere, it's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped.
The part of the so-called Illuminati, the elite, all those that worship Satan. And like I stated, the so-called elite work on opposites. Whatever's the truth, they're going to tell us the exact opposite. Like I stated with evolution, the Earth being a ball when it's really flat, the distance of the sun, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, telling us how the sun is supposedly 93 million miles away, when it's actually only a few thousand miles away. And with this video demonstration, I've showed this before in a previous video, you can clearly see how the sun is much closer. I'm going to actually show two footages, one of a time-lapse over Lake Michigan looking over Chicago, Illinois, and another time-lapse of the sunset in South Africa. Take a look, and I'll also explain the vanishing point. Now, as you can see, as the sun is basically just circling the Earth, and you can clearly see how the sun is localized In this one area, you're going to see the clouds being lit up right here at this point. Understand, the sun is nowhere, again, as far as we're told, it's nowhere near as large as we're told. It's much smaller and much closer. It's all under the firmament. The sun was in actuality 93 million miles away. The whole sky should be illuminated. It's not. It's localized again. Play this a little bit more. You can clearly see what's happening here is called the vanishing point. It is not going over or under the ball. It is just circling, going around. And I'll show that in a second. I'll let this video conclude. And it appears at this point to go around the ball. It's not. Again, it's the vanishing point. I'll show that right now. And with this image, as you can see, these three telephone poles are the same height. You can see here the one nearest appears taller, and the one furthest appears smaller, to the point where you can't see them anymore, and they appear to disappear. Again, this is called the vanishing point. Now, taking a look at these real life telephone poles, the same deal. These are all the same height, but due to perspective, one furthest away appears shorter when they're not. They're all the same height. And as you go down the line, the one furthest away appears to lose its legs, basically. You just see the top portion. That's the exact same thing that happens to the sun. This location here. Same exact thing. Now, taking a look at this time lapse from South Africa. Basically the same thing. You're going to see how the sun is moving and the earth is still stationary, fixed, like the Bible states. Clear as day. Take a look. And again, much smaller than we're told and much closer. Everything is within the firmament. No way this sun is 93 million miles away and this would happen. And obviously much smaller than we're told as well. Again, this is how they work on opposites. When you work off opposites, when you tell someone, for example, something is A, when in actuality it's Z, it's too far for the human mind to accept. And this is what they have done to the masses from generation through generation. Understand, 500 years ago, people believed the earth was flat. If you told them we were living on a ball, you would be ridiculed, made fun of. This is how society is controlled, the sheep mentality.
Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere, it's oblate, and officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped.
How do you like it? They tell you all the time what to do, what to think, what to feel. Do you want to be like a sheep? Like all those other people, man? Do you understand? That piece of shit up there, I never liked him. I never trusted him.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that that was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, in the firmament of the heavens, in the firmament of the heavens, in the firmament of the heavens. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day.
To shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it.
Fear before him all the earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. The Lord reigneth, he is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he hath girded himself. The world also is established, that it cannot be moved. Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. For he looketh to the ends of the earth, and seeth under the whole heaven.
We never stop hearing about how the internet's in the cloud, but really, it's in the ocean. About 300 undersea fiber optic cables are responsible for 99% of international data traffic. It's basically the same way we connect to each other in a single country, except underwater instead of underground. They transmit PewDiePie from Europe to America, and they connect stock traders in New York and London. And these cables, placed by private companies, are the backbone of the internet. But if you held one in your hand, it'd be no bigger than a soda can. There are just a few layers of protection from the water, including petroleum jelly, Yes, your internet is covered in Vaseline. They're vulnerable to earthquakes. At least a few times, confused sharks have bitten them. But many cables are beneath sea life because in some places they go as deep underwater as Mount Everest is high. Ships lower a plow that digs a tiny groove in the ocean floor, lay in the cable, and it's naturally buried by sand thanks to the ocean's current. And that process, it's both stunningly simple and mind-blowingly complex, is responsible for making the internet a truly global network. It's an idea that's audacious and crazy, and you think it has to be cutting edge, and it is, but it's also been going on for 157 years. Electric telegraphs have been around for a long, long time. Experiments in the early 1800s connected two ends of a garden using a clock that revealed letters. Then they moved on to two neighborhoods to help signal trains, and then multiple cities thanks to a network of railroad lines. Underwater submarine cables were an obvious next step, so they played around. Instead of petroleum jelly, the first ones were coated with exotic tree sap to protect them from the water. And though the undersea cables came in spurts, one of the first ones was knocked out of commission by a fishing boat. By 1858, they reached around the Atlantic and across the world. And that's how it's kind of gone since, laying cables that circle the Earth's oceans. The cables are unwound from the back of a ship, sink to the ocean floor, and the world is connected in speeds measured in milliseconds. There are ideas to bring the internet above sea level, along with cell phone towers and balloons lifted by Google. But for speedy international travel, undersea cables are still where companies like Facebook and Google place their bets. That's because the best way to create the cloud is still by going under the sea.
When you wear a wristwatch, you are wearing the whole entire concept of the world you live in. Again, how the sun moves faster than the moon and it circles above. That's simple. And I find it very interesting looking at Admiral Byrd going back in time. And you see the whole entire concept of the flat earth behind him. And what do you see here in the center? Okay, take a look here. It's basically exactly how, again, how the arms work on a clock. Understand the whole entire concept as well. When it comes to the magnetic north, this is what controls how the sun and the moon circle above the flat earth. Okay, just like how on a wristwatch or a clock, how the center basically dictates how the arms move on a clock. Same exact principle. There are a lot of so-called truthers that think they are close to the truth, but they don't understand everything they've been told, everything they thought they knew was true, was nothing more than a lie. They can figure out some things are a lie, such as 9/11, the Boston bombing, so-called Boston bombing, Sandy Hook, and so forth. They don't, again, understand everything they're told is nothing but a lie. And that also includes, as I've stated many times, the so-called ball earth. Let's take a look at the foundation when it comes to Freemasonry, of course, an international organization. And why do they use the so-called square, which is a measuring tool, and the compass? Okay, a square, first off, has four corners, and this one doesn't. Okay? Let's take a look here from the Bible, Job 26:10. Referring to God, He hath compassed the waters with bounds until the day and night comes to an end. So the concept of a compass, as you see here, this is the foundation of the world we live in. Okay? You have the circle within a square and the ice ring that surrounds the flat earth. Okay? The compass, and these are your bounds with a compass. This is the entire foundation. Of course, the concept of pillars as well is huge when it comes to Freemasonry. It's very simple once you understand the Bible. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and He hath set the world upon them. Okay, but this is how they do it. With Freemasonry, instead of putting God up here, they put Lucifer. Instead of a flat earth, they put a ball earth. This is how they do it. It's all about duality, as you see right in front of you with the black and white. Okay, all about duality. Now, taking a look here also at this Bible verse, just before I do so, again, the circle within the square. From Revelation 7:1, talks about the four angels standing on the four corners of the earth. Okay? A ball earth obviously does not have corners. This is the true concept representation of the biblical flat earth. Okay, let's move on here to these images and these Freemasons that have conceived this phony baloney ball earth. Take a look here at this artwork going back in time. Of course, you can see the ball earth, the moon, and the so-called Milky Way. This goes back to 1918. This was all conceived by Freemason Władysław Benda. Okay, let's take a look here again at the details. Earth with the Milky Way and moon, 1918. Okay, how do they know how the so-called ball earth looked like going back in time when the very first so-called photo of the ball earth was from 1946? Okay, it's only a partial image. And give me a break. Look at these clouds. Look at this supposed shadow on the ball earth. It's a complete joke. Okay, these Masons came up with the whole entire concept. I'll show some more details here once again with this supposed concept. Here's the details again from 1918. It's done with charcoal and originally appeared in March 1918 edition of Cosmopolitan, along with an article titled "The Future of the Earth." Okay, this is your future, the future of the Earth, going back to 1918. The whole entire concept going back also in time as well here with Universal Pictures from 1927 to 1936. This was their logo that appeared before movies played. Okay, again, pre-1946, before the supposed first photo of the ball earth. And how is it possible it's so accurate with current day globes? You actually believe we live on this spinning ball with the supposed circumference at 25,000 miles, a little bit under 25,000 miles, in the radius only at, and that's from the core to the top, any side, 3,959 miles. That's it from the very top to the core. That's exactly why you're deceived. You don't understand these numbers. They're a complete joke. Just fabricated numbers. I always talk about truth in movies and lies in the news. Here's another example from the 1984 movie. Take a listen to what is said here.
Because we control the mind. Reality is inside the skull, Winston. We control the laws of nature. The stars are not light years, but a few kilometers away. If we wished, we could blot them out.
That's what it all comes down to. Only a few kilometers away, not light years away like we're told. Now let's take a look at this model, as I show many times, of the flat earth. It's basically how the sun goes over. There's no concept of the moon, but how the sun revolves around the flat earth. Now, if you live, say for example, in California, of course, each morning the sun comes from the east coast. Okay? Then it goes over California, for example. It does not go over or around the supposed ball. It just goes out of sight. Due to perspective, it appears to go around a ball. It's not. It's just circling around the flat earth. That's all it's doing. Okay, from your perspective, it looks like it's going down. It's not. Looks like it's sinking. It's not. From, again, perspective. Just like a row of telephone poles. They're all the same height, but due to perspective, you cannot see the bottom portion of the legs. Not because they're no longer there. Just because, again, you only can see so far. That's what it all comes down to. Now, the entire concept, as I showed before as well, people say, well, this can't be possible. You have daylight, and night at the same time. The whole flat earth should be illuminated. It's not the case. The sun, again, just like Polaris, they're much, much closer than we're told, as I shown before. In this footage, as you can see here at night, this Alaska cruise. This guy here, let me go to the start here. This guy's in his, basically his cabin. He peers out, and there you go. There's the moon. He pans over. And there's your daytime right there. Okay, pans over to the left. Here's your daytime. If you keep going further down, you're eventually going to see the sun. It's just basically, again, the whole concept of the sun, as I shown here, revolving around the flat earth. Show this again here. Get to that point. There's your day. And there's your night. Go slow. Simple as that. All easily explained. Once you understand the whole entire concept, the reason, again, people believe what they do believe, again, they can't get past all the lies. They think they're smart enough to figure out they've been lied to about some things when they don't understand they've been lied to about everything by these Masons that own and control this whole entire world.
It's a pack of useless lies. If the thing's a lie, and that's a fact. Life is a lemon, and I want my money back.
A lie, and this whole world ain't what we thought it was. NASA's missions to the moon were never completed. They just filmed them in a room and people believe it. I used to wonder what it's like to be an astronaut. Now when I see them acting, I can't help but to laugh a lot. They give us cartoons and they claim that we live on a ball, but it's flat and it's not moving or spinning at all. Why you lying to us, man? That's something that we want to know. After that, you're gonna have to pack up all your stuff and go. History has been rewritten by winners of wars. The Jesuit order, Khazars, Freemasons, and more. They pulled the veil over our eyes, and it's time to awaken. Through organized indoctrination, our minds have been taken. It's time we take our power back and we rescue our people. The Vatican and the bankers are like Resident Evil. They may have had the greatest plan that was ever concocted, but Illuminati never thought that they'd ever be spotted. They're manufacturing reality all in our heads. They tell us if the earth is flat, then we'll fall off the edge. But if it is a spinning ball, we won't fall off it then. And gravity is our imaginary magic friend. Why is water always flat when unmanipulated? Why are pictures of the earth computer generated? Why you lying to us, man? That's something that we want to know. After that, you're gonna have to pack up all your stuff and go.
It's becoming 100% crystal clear that you and the other space programs that are in operation are connected and are deceiving the entire world. More and more people are waking up every single day, and we are now able to see right through you.
Glory to the Lord Most High, King of power and light.
want to fear what Big Brother's going to do? You want to fear what the government's going to do? I'm going to tell you, folks, we're moving rapidly to a cashless society. We're moving to the point where your debit card is going to be it. It is now your credit card and debit card together, and we're moving rapidly towards that. In Clinton and Gore's new book, Putting People First, he says, and Hillary said today, they want every man, woman, and child in the United States to be carrying a smart card. The smart card is a French card. 1 million of them have already been brought into Maryland in the welfare system. Folks, it has the microchip in it. It is the same readout as the microchip for the back of the hand. And the system is being prepared for that microchip.
On the flat plane, it's closer, it's smaller, so the further it travels away from you, it appears to go down. It's far enough away to where you can't see the light.
When we have hot spots proving locality, that it can't be 93 million miles away.
We are looking at a very local sun.
The wheels within wheels with eyes all around. Would you like to see the eyes and the wheels all around and the eyes all over the wheels? I'll show you those eyes. Here are the wheels with the eyes. The stars, the hosts of heaven, God's creation, the ones, each star has its name, as it says in the scripture. God says, I have named them all. These are the eyes. These are the eyes on the wheels. Our stars. I just can't help but to quote from Isaiah 40:26. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, for that he is strong in power, not one faileth. This is what people have been missing this whole time, and it's been right in front of our faces in the scripture. This is what God was showing Ezekiel. The wheels within the wheels are the belts that surround Earth. NASA calls them the Van Allen belts. These are the invisible belts of magnetic energy within the torus that keep everything in motion, everything moving like a fine-tuned clock. All the eyes that Ezekiel saw was the stars. All the stars are created by God. They are the luminaries. That is what makes up all the eyes that is being spoken of. What Ezekiel saw was the absolute pure beauty of our home that God created for us. This is what Satan wants you blinded to. This is the absolute magnificence that Satan doesn't want you to see. This is why they mockingly show you that image in Game of Thrones and other movies, the wheels within the wheels over the flat plain earth. They're showing you the truth right in front of your face, and they laugh because you don't understand and you don't see. This is the beauty, this is the sheer absolute beauty of the world that God created, and He called it good. Now that you have eyes to see and ears to hear, now let me tell you this. These wheels that we see, these bands that move like a clock, this is how the sun and the moon do what they do. This explains their movements. It's all about magnetic energy. It's all about the magnetic fields. This is how they're frictionless and how they move in perfect unison. And just as it states in the book of Enoch, through the movement of these wheels, we see how the sun and moon will go through their vaults and rise and return in different areas. This is what the globe has blinded people to. The absolute truth of what God said all along. It has been here the whole time in the scriptures. Instead, we choose to listen to NASA. Instead, we choose to listen to the idiot box. Instead, we choose to listen to scientists, and we heap amongst ourselves teachers that teach us absolute lies to keep us in the dark. When God's been saying the whole time, just look up. Look up at what surrounds you. I made this for you. That's all God wanted to say. Just take a look. I'm here. I am right above you. You can take comfort knowing that when you step outside and gaze up into that starry wonder of God's creation, just know that our Father in heaven is sitting up there right now, staring down at all of us, watching us, watching our every move. He knows everything that's going on down here. He has not missed anything. And just know and be comforted by the fact that our Father is right there, and He's been there this whole time. This is something that the world and NASA and the scientists can never take from us, ever. Even the lying powers and signs of Satan that are coming, the lies of the fallen angels and the lies of the world that are going to be ever increasing, will still not rob this from my heart, and they will never rob from me my faith in Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.